Rubber chicken versus shredder. Wait for it. 3, 2, 1. Right now, you are getting a rush of dopamine. Can you feel it? That urge to see what's gonna happen next. That's not an accident. I didn't even say anything exciting. Nothing really happened. But your brain leaned forward anyway. And that right there is dopamine doing its job. So what is dopamine? Dopamine is a chemical in the brain that plays a central role in motivation, learning, and goal-directed behavior. On a biological level, dopamine is produced in neurons. It starts from an amino acid called tyrosine, which is then converted into L-dopa and then into dopamine. That dopamine is stored in small vesicles at the end of the neurons, ready to be released when we take action. So in simple terms, dopamine is the chemical that tells your brain this is actually worth doing. From an evolutionary perspective, this system developed to push humans toward difficult but meaningful behaviors. Things like learning new skills, solving problems, building, hunting, surviving. Things that required effort before reward. And this part matters, so I want to slow down here. The key thing to understand is dopamine was not designed to be free. It was designed to be earned through effort. The problem is, in our modern world, we have figured out a way to hijack our dopamine system. Things like smartphones, social media, fast food, alcohol, and constant digital stimulation can spike dopamine instantly, with very little effort required. Your brain evolved to release dopamine after struggle. Now it releases dopamine after opening an app. And while that feels good in the moment, repeated artificial dopamine spikes comes with a cost. Over time, they reduce how sensitive your brain is to dopamine, and it shifts your reward baseline. And this makes normal, meaningful activities so much harder to do. Things like studying feels harder, working feels harder, exercise, forget about it. It feels unreasonably exhausting. And no, it's not because you're mentally weak, it's because your brain has been used to an environment with constant stimulation. This is why so many people today struggle with focus, struggle with consistency, and struggle to take action towards their goals, even when they genuinely want to. Think about it, we're just getting started with this year. It's the year where you have promised yourself that you're gonna take action and you're gonna change. But let's be real. How many people are actually taking actions? It's difficult. It sucks. Hard work is hard. And this is important to mention because it's not a flaw in your character. It's just your brain's response to the environment that we are living in. If you are new to the channel, my name is Hassan. I'm a medical student, and my goal is to break down complex topics into ideas that we can start using to live a better life, to reach peak performance. In today's video, we're gonna talk about the solution to this problem. I'm gonna be talking about how to reset your dopamine system in a realistic and sustainable way. Hopefully, this is gonna make taking action becomes easier, focus improves, and it's gonna make your motivation levels increase. I'm also gonna give you practical steps that you can take today, literally after you've watched this video, to start resetting your dopamine levels today. So let's get started. Let's talk about something that most people get wrong. Let me start with a question. How many times have you sat down to do something important, like studying, working, or reading, fully knowing what you need to do? You are aware of what is gonna happen, you know that you need to finish an assignment or read for an hour, and yet you grab your phone and check it. Not because you want to, not because there is something important on your phone, but it's almost an automatic response. You unlock your phone, look at it, lock it, and then unlock it again, and suddenly 3 minutes has passed and you're already tired. That's not laziness, okay? That's overstimulation. And this is where a lot of people get trapped. They assume, if I had just more discipline, this wouldn't be a problem. But here's the uncomfortable truth. If willpower worked the way we think it does, no one would have social media on their phone, including me. The issue is not that your willpower is broken. The issue is your dopamine system is constantly being pulled in different directions. Think of dopamine like a hydraulic pressure. In the past, pressure would build slowly. You would have effort, and then you will get a reward. Today, we are applying pressure constantly. Notification, videos, messages, updates, no release, no recovery. Eventually, the system stops responding properly. And when that happens, motivation does not disappear. It just becomes unstable. Some days you feel fine. Other days, everything just feels like too much. And that inconsistency is one of the biggest signs of dysregulated dopamine systems. Boredom used to be normal. Here's something we don't talk about enough. 10 or 15 years ago, boredom used to be normal. You waited, you stared out of the window, you stood in line doing absolutely nothing. But today, boredom feels uncomfortable. It's almost painful. We can't stand it, we don't want it. The moment boredom shows up, we reach for stimulation. But boredom is not a flaw in the system. It's a recovery state. Boredom is what allows dopamine sensitivity to rebuild. If we never allow boredom, the reset will never happen. And then we wonder why focus feels so hard. So if dopamine is not only about pleasure and motivation is not about willpower, then what is it that actually works? The answer is not removing joy from your life. I'm not talking about monk mode. I'm not talking about deleting everything and moving to the mountains. The answer is restoring the order your brain evolved for. Effort first, reward second. And that's exactly what we're gonna be talking about next. So in this next chapter of the video, I'm gonna walk you through 3 practical steps that you can start using today. Literally right after you've watched this video. Steps that are gonna help you reset your dopamine system and makes focus, hard work feels a lot easier. So let's start with the most important step. Pain first, pleasure later. The first practical step to resetting dopamine is learning to reverse the order of pain and pleasure. In modern life, we almost always do pleasure first. We wake up and scroll. We eat junk food. We listen to music. We watch TikToks all day. We sit down to work and suddenly there is notification. We reward ourselves before doing anything hard at all, before we've done anything to earn it. And neurologically, that's backwards. Dopamine works best when effort comes before pleasure. When effort comes before reward, not the other way around. When you do something difficult, something uncomfortable, something demanding, your brain responds by releasing dopamine afterward. That's the key. It's not during, it's afterward. This is why things like exercise, deep work, reading can feel uncomfortable in the exact moment, but feel so good when you've actually done it. Pain first versus pleasure first. Pain first creates a delayed dopamine rise. Pleasure first creates a dopamine crash. Let me explain what that actually looks like in real life. If you wake up and the first thing you do in the morning is grab your phone and scroll, which is something that many people do. I mean, I used to do that myself. When you scroll as the first thing in the morning, your brain gets a reward before it has done anything. That means when it's time to focus, when it's time to study or work, there's nothing left to chase. Everything feels heavier. But if you flip that order, let's say you wake up and do something uncomfortable first, your brain starts to associate effort with reward again. And that changes everything. I noticed this myself when studying. There were days where I would sit down to study, fully caffeinated, have slept 8 hours and just ready to lock in, but I would still feel completely stuck. I would feel like I had to read the same sentence 10 times before I actually understood what that short sentence was actually about. I felt like my brain was slower, and then I realized it was because the first 30 minutes of me waking up, I was scrolling Instagram reels, I was scrolling TikToks, I was replying to messages. So I tried an experiment. No phone for the first couple of hours of me waking up. And what I actually experienced was whenever I sat down to study, I was way more efficient. It wasn't because I was suddenly smarter, but because my brain was not as distracted as before. I didn't experience that dopamine crash that it previously was used to. So you can try this yourself and let me know in the comments what you think. Starting from tomorrow, try to not look at your phone in the first couple of hours of the day and just see what's gonna happen. Now to the most important part, I'm not trying to remove all kind of pleasure from your life. It's just about understanding that effort comes first and then pleasure. That's it. When that relationship is restored, motivation becomes way more stable, not dependent on constant stimulation. From a physiology standpoint, this works because dopamine neurons respond strongly to unexpected reward following effort. When reward is predictable and immediate, dopamine firing decreases over time. But when effort precedes reward, dopamine signaling stays sensitive. That is why earned rewards feel better than passive ones, even when they are objectively smaller. Your brain values the process, not just the outcome. You don't have to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning to jump in the ice bath. It can be as simple as doing the hardest thing before grabbing your phone and scrolling on TikTok. It can be studying before rewarding yourself. It can be exercising before scrolling. It can be going to the gym without listening to music. Even 5 to 10 minutes of effort first, then pleasure, can change your entire day. So step 1 is about restoring the order of effort first, then pleasure. That alone can dramatically improve your dopamine system. But there's a problem. Even if you understand this perfectly, there is still a phone in your pocket. And that brings us to step 2, phone fasting. The second practical step to resetting dopamine is something called phone fasting. And before this sounds extreme, I'm not telling you to destroy your phone or never look at it again. It's all about timing, because when you use your phone matters just as much as how you use it. The most important time to do a phone fast is right when you wake up. When you wake up in the morning, dopamine levels are naturally low, and that's not a problem. That's how your brain is supposed to start the day. Low dopamine in the morning is what creates drive. It's that feeling of, okay, let's do something. But if the first thing you do is unlock your phone, you give your brain a big reward before it's done anything. So later in the day, when it's time to work, your brain has no reason to try. It already got what it wanted. That's why morning that starts with you scrolling on your phone leads to a day that generally feel unproductive. And the quickest fix to this is just to sleep with your phone outside of your room, or sleep with your phone out of reach. This way, when you wake up, you literally have to physically stand up, turn the alarm off, and then it's harder to go back to bed with your phone and scroll. The second thing is, your goal has to be that from the moment that you wake up, there has to go at least an hour before grabbing your phone. And if you can't wait an hour, do all of the necessary things first. Brush your teeth, make your bed, do anything that you need to do, like make breakfast, and then, if you want, grab your phone. The same idea applies at night. If you're constantly on your phone before bed, you're keeping dopamine high when it should be slowing down. Your brain doesn't switch off properly. This will lead to your sleep quality declining, and that means that next day your motivation is gonna even be lower than before. So a good goal should be that 1 hour before bed, you are putting your phone away and not looking at it. Not because everything has to be perfect, but because good quality of sleep is important for your mental health, physical health, and overall cognitive ability. So step 2 is about protecting your dopamine at the most vulnerable time, morning and nights. But even if you do all of this right, if your environment is working against you, nothing will really change. Which brings us to step 3, environmental control. The third practical step is environmental control. And this is where most people go wrong. They try to fix their brain with willpower. Here's the truth. Willpower is weakest in the moment and strongest in advance. Now, what does it mean? When you are tired, stressed, or bored, your brain doesn't want to make good decisions. It wants the easiest reward available. So if distractions are close, willpower loses. Not because you're weak, but because that's just how your brain works. Most people treat temptations like personal failure, but that's the wrong mindset. Instead of asking yourself to constantly resist temptations, you can change the environment so temptation is harder to access. That way, you don't fight with your brain. you work with it. And this doesn't need to be complicated. Small changes make a big difference. For example, if you remove social media apps from your phone, that's a quick, easy environmental change. If you charge your phone outside of your bedroom, if you keep your phone out of reach when studying, each of these methods add the same thing. They add friction, and friction gives your brain the time to choose better. For me, this was huge when studying. If my phone was on my desk, I used to grab it instantly whenever the assignment felt a little bit hard, or I didn't know what to do, or I just got bored. So I stopped relying on discipline, and I made a rule. Whenever I would sit down to study, I would just put my phone in another room. Problem solved. That meant that even though I would feel bored when I was studying, I didn't have anything to entertain me. I would go back to the mindset of studying. Not because I became stronger all of a sudden, but because I made an environmental change. So let's zoom out for a second. Step 1 was all about order. Effort first, reward second. Step 2 was about timing. It was about protecting your mornings and nights. And step 3 is about structure. Building an environment that doesn't drain your dopamine all day long. These practical steps are truly powerful together. And if you start using them today, you will feel the changes yourself. You will feel the impact that it's going to have on your energy levels, motivation, focus, ability to learn, everything. So if you are feeling cooked right now or tired, at least try one of these steps and you are going to feel the difference. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. See you in the next video.